So it's day 20. I'm at the halfway mark. Um, Although I have decided that I pretty much am going to continue to try to live this way where it's like where I don't lie, but not being bound to the idea of not telling white lies from now and then. It'll make communications a little easier in general. But it was my first day back at work after my little 3-day hiatus, and it was pretty decent. There wasn't much that happened. And one of my colleagues drove me back home, which was great because I'm pretty sure my toe is broken. Yesterday I was like, yep, it's definitely broken. But, today and seeing how bruised and swollen it is, I'm like, especially since it's kind of like that instead of straight, which is not good. I was supposed to go to the gym today. The trainer said that he was going to, my trainer said he was going to give me some exercises that wouldn't affect my toe, and I said I was going to do 5:30, and then I decided since I had all this time, it was only 3, I could take a quick nap, and it'd be fine. And I really need to stop trying to take naps before the gym because they never work out. It always ends up turning into actual sleep. So I'm gonna not do that anymore because anyway, I was writing a little bit at work and I finished a drawing. And when I was writing today, I said my rosary when I was at work, and when I was thinking on the mystery of resurrection, I started thinking about, as arbitrary as it sounds, my old Facebook versus my new one. And my old Facebook, I had something like 1,200 friends, and now I have about a little less than 300, which is like, I find it better because I can sort of choose who I add, and it's easier than just deleting people in general, because I don't know if any of you have had the experience where you delete someone and then you have to be in an encounter with them, and it's a bit awkward because they sort of interpret your ability to be civil with whether or not you have a Facebook friendship with them, which it's such a weird construct, this online social world. But I am seeing now that the idea of Facebook is generally geared towards women a lot more, just because there's this sort of need for approval of one's looks or one's abilities, and I'm in that camp. I know I'm guilty of it, and I have been guilty of it in the past. But getting a fresh start where I'm mostly just focused on sharing work and sharing art, it makes things a little bit different because I'm not too concerned with sifting through people's lives and sort of spying on them the way that I used to. And I'm not consumed by how many likes I get on any given post. I just sort of post things, and then I get clients that way. If they like my work, then they contact me, and now that I actually have a page, it's much easier for them to do that. What did jump out at me is how many people thought that I had deleted them because I didn't like them, and for them to realize that I didn't actually delete them, but I deleted myself, was it actually improved some of my relationships as far as like actual interactions go. So that should improve my that should improve my client base as well. Not posting anything about politics also improves my client base, makes it more easy to approach me in a way. I find myself getting less and less interested in politics in general, especially here in Canada. It's a bit more. The things that divide us here in Canada are affinities that we have with people in the United States, and not so much about our own politics. Like we have our problems with identity politics, which everybody knows, and our problems with universities, which the world has seen, and to our everlasting shame, we sort of appear to be a bunch of social justice warriors, like a country of them. And while that's partially true, there are a lot of people here that don't ascribe to that way of thinking. And I consider myself among them. Nobody really asked how are you kind of thing. I think that it was nice today because I didn't have to answer that question, because nobody really asked it. They just sort of were like, how was your weekend? Anything eventful? And I was like, okay, I can answer that question. That's not a tough question. I have a few clients lined up for this week and weekend, and mostly I was just thinking about the idea of resurrection, rebirth, and that we need to either die figuratively and go to a place of hell before we can be reborn into what our true self is, or what the light is, or more in tune with the Holy Spirit. And I'm finding it really hard to let go. I mean, I don't mourn for the person that I was. I don't miss her. But there are a lot of other things that happened in that, I'll call it my former life, that were positive, that I had really great experiences, or at least I remember them fondly, even though they might have contributed to a lot of the bad things that have happened to me. Drinking, for one, as much as I tried to drink this past weekend. I tried to have a cider, and it just wasn't the same. I just wasn't in the same state of mind. And I find that a lot of the people that are more well versed with my past self have been resurfacing lately, especially men from my past. And they all seem to want the same thing, in a sense. There's men that are I've had, I guess you would call them, relationships in the past, and I feel like there are men from the past that want to relive the past, and they approach the present day me to no avail. And I try to explain to them what has changed, and I'm pretty sure that they think that all that it would take is one day reliving my past self in order to go back to that version of myself. Get a lot of people that that sort of want to take a walk down memory lane, and they send me messages talking about how they enjoyed a variety of events that happened in the past, and I just like I can't play the game with them anymore. I used to be like, oh yeah, I remember that, trying to be nice, and now I'm just like, don't talk to me about that. Like I don't want to take a walk down memory lane. Like those memories, the memories where I was outside of myself, I don't remember fondly. And when I say outside of myself, I have memories that I feel like myself, like I was a fly on the wall watching myself do things. Um, like getting wasted and saying things and acting in certain ways. It just wasn't me. It wasn't me. And I remember them almost like a film where I'm watching myself do things and I'm just like, who is this person? Who is this person? What is she doing? I don't understand why she's doing this. And those are a lot of the past memories that I have. Not all of them, obviously. There's some nice ones. It got me thinking about loss. I had like it's so silly because it's such a first world problem. I had a bunch of videos from when I was a baby, um, in the Caribbean with my mom and my brother, and even in Ottawa with my dad and my grandmother. Videos of when I was like 2 years old and stuff on this external hard drive. And in 2015, I dropped that hard drive, and there was like a disk crash. So in order to try and pull any information off of it, I have to pay like $1,600, and they have to go to like a clean room, and I never had the amount of money to try and get that information back, because there's no guarantee that you would get the things that you want. And I was thinking about that feeling that I had of loss, where you have something and it's gone and there's no way to get it back. And the art of letting go. There was this I was really good friends, almost like sisters, with my niece's mom. Even after her and my brother split, we stayed really good friends. We lived together. We were just like inseparable, and we had so much in common. And when she decided that we couldn't continue to be friends and she just sort of blocked me from her life, that was a hard one for me. And I remember giving her this Buddha board for Christmas one year. And essentially, it's a board that you paint on it with a brush and water, and it looks like black ink. So you can paint like a masterpiece. But the minute that it dries, it goes back to a blank board. And it's supposed to help in the art of letting go. So when you create something, you can enjoy it in the moment, and then it disappears. And I started thinking about the problems that we have now being problems with staying in the moment, whether it's reminiscing on the past and wanting to go back to it, like making America great again, or making Canada great again, which is apparently is a thing. I have no idea where they're going with that. Or whether you're looking to the past to inform the present, in the sense of looking at past injustices and applying them to present day thinking. And I think there's problems with both of these things. I think there's problems with the sort of racially driven utterances, racially driven identity politics, where people are like, oh, well, slavery, well, Holocaust, well, this, well, that, well, look at Libya, well, look at this place, look at how women were treated, look at how, I mean, like, Libya's a bad example because it's still going on, but I mean, in North America, we sort of look back at how badly we treated people to inform how we should correct those things now. And conversely, we look at how bad things have gotten because of those ways of thinking and want to go back to a place where we didn't have to think about those things. And I feel like looking to the past is foolish. I think it's foolish. I think that making North America great again, or making America great again, making Canada great again, is idiotic. Just as idiotic as looking at slavery to inform how we should make reparations to people who were descendants of slaves. I think that they're both ridiculous premises, and they're both informed by the past and not the present. And I think that if we all made an effort to stay in the moment and to act in ways that are true to ourselves and not just be flies on the wall, looking at ourselves interacting with one another based on ideas that are not our own but that are fed to us, we could probably make the present even better than it is. Because things are overall pretty good and we all are fighting for what we believe. And I think that's great. And I think the idea behind making anything great again, I think that the actual argument itself is flawed. I think the sentiment is correct in a sense, because for every action there has to be an equal and opposite reaction. That's just the way that things are. So when I think about the battles that are being fought online, because I don't see so much of it in person. You know, when I talk to people about issues in person, it's a lot different than if you're fighting online. But the battle that I'm seeing online against the idea of free speech, even against the idea of like suppression, it makes sense. I understand why people feel like things were better and that they can be better again, but there's no way back. There's no way back unless you can get a time machine. And even if you did, we'd still have to go through the motions. It's like growing pains of a democracy. At some point, like all human endeavors, we're going to fail. Whatever we create is going to die. So what we have to do is create a legacy that is sustainable. And I don't think that reinstating aspects of our past is a sustainable way forward. Neither do I think that correcting the past is a sustainable way forward. So I'm seeing now that there's really like a battle between how to address the past, and nobody's actually taking into account what is presently going on. The way that I see it is that the present situations that we have are the things that are actually causing the most distress, I believe, is this idea of gender and biology being completely separate. I think that is probably the most important thing. And it's not about making something great again. It's not about that. It's about finding an idea or a set of ideas to combat this new set of ideas, or relatively new. It's only been about 40 or 50 years since gender theory attempted to, or succeeded in for some, to separate the idea of gender and sex. And when I think about all of these people, because like even when I was in gender studies, I had made my Facebook profile they, because I was like, the idea of being a girl is ridiculous, and the idea of being a male is incorrect because I'm not a male. So I put they, and then over time I realized, I'm like, well, look, there's not just one way to be female. There's not just one way to be male. You just be what you want to be. I'm probably going to go and buy a men's suit on the 15th of March because I need to have dress attire for when I go on my course, but civilian stuff. And I know that I'm going to get a men's suit because they look nicer and I'd feel more comfortable in one. But it doesn't mean that I'm a man. Obviously, I'm still a woman. I don't know. It's a toughie because I get why people want to be outside of the norm. They want to be contrarians. It's just in our nature. There's always going to be people that are counterculture. But at some point, counterculture becomes a cultural norm. And going against the grain when it becomes the grain, then there's going to be people to go against that. And if we can all just find a way to coexist, I agree with Peterson that the whole idea that there's an infinite amount of genders is just unsustainable and it makes no sense. And it just serves to infuriate and confuse people. I don't know. I just don't know. This whole, we got a memo at work via email, and it's not a new thing. Everybody knows about the whole gender neutral changes to the Canadian anthem. A guy with ALS put forth the motion before he passed away, and kind as we are as Canadians, we're duty bound to make it a reality. So we changed the anthem, but the anthem had changed before. It had changed during World War I to honor all of the men who laid down their lives, especially the men from Newfoundland who, during the men from Newfoundland who had lost their lives. And it was such a large population. It was like almost maybe 70% of the male population of Newfoundland, except for the people that were 4F, essentially all died. And I think that was a good reason to have changed the anthem. And maybe we should have just stuck with the Maple Leaf Forever. I don't know. I like the Maple Leaf Forever much better as an anthem. It's more musical. I like the American national anthem. That is a nice anthem. Russian one's good too, and so is Germany's. But I digress. I don't think the idea of gender and sex being separate is helping anyone. And I don't think the idea of strict gender roles helps anyone either. So I think that's probably where the crux of the issue is. The idea of fighting the past or going back to it, as opposed to living in the present. I have no idea how to combat the ideas that are prevalent in today's youth. I have no idea how to explain that the idea of white privilege is a racist concept. And I have no idea how to reconcile kindness and truth. I don't think that there's a way to do it. And I've touched on this before. Kindness and truth. Kindness sometimes involves lying. And God, I don't even know. Like if I encountered a trans person during this Lenten period, I what would be the lie? What would be the lie? I feel like there would be some sort of I'd have to rationalize why I would use certain pronouns if I didn't actually think that they were true. I'm not sure how to do that yet. I'm not sure how to do it. I know that in 20 days I'll probably go back to using whatever pronouns anyone wants. But for this period where I'm so introspective, I don't know what I would do if I was faced with that situation at this point. So, but I mean, everything sort of happens in the present, and the present is just like a blip that just follows throughout time, and you're in it, and then it's past, and it just comes and goes so easily. The past becomes nothing, but it's also everything to some people. I think that there's a way that we can be informed by the past without trying to correct it in post, trying to hold the past to today's standards, or wearing pins, or saying that the time is now or time's up or whatever. I think there's a way that we can make things better without simultaneously making things worse. But we haven't figured it out yet. And for the moment, we are sacrificing logic for passion. And it's a passion that some people have for reliving the past or reinventing it through present day actions. But it's all about the past. I wish that there was a way to just wipe the slate clean so we could start from scratch, but there's no real way to do that. So until there's some sort of return to sanity, shout out to Owen Benjamin, until there's some sort of return to sanity where we can actually discuss issues that are affecting us in the present, I don't think that there's any way that we can part with the past, and there's going to be a battle from the left to the right, or from right to the left, about how we should view the past in the present day, whether we should embrace it and try to go back to it, or reject it and try to correct it. Both options just seem terrible. They just seem terrible. In any case, I guess all that we can do is try to be as truthful as we can with ourselves. Let go of versions of ourselves that make us liars. liars to others, liars to our own nature, and reject values that compromise our ability to be. Because I keep thinking about those experiences I had, and I thought that they were positive in the moment. And I look back on them, and I realize that there's lessons that I learned from them, but their only value is anecdotal, they're not really applicable to my present day self. Ramble again. I'm always rambling. Anyway, so that's day 20. It's just introspection and thinking about loss of self, the losses that I've had, trying to move forward without trying to compensate for those losses, looking at the present as its own entity and not trying to go back to the past and not trying to be so opposed to the past that I lose myself in another way. Questions? I don't have any answers. Not yet. I'm going to pray on it. Have a good one.